episode of Absolute Candor, Burly Media's critical review podcast, and this time we're going to be reviewing Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, kicking off with the very first episode, Hegemony Part 2, picking up from that insane Season 2 cliffhanger, which feels like it was almost 2 years, I think. 2023 that episode originally broadcast. We've been waiting mainly because of, I don't even know what the delay was, really. There was a writer strike, I think, briefly, and then we've had this Skydance Paramount merger that potentially would have, slowed things down somewhat, but we're finally here. Episode 1 has dropped and has sort of just thrown us straight back in. It almost picks up the scene, with Pike frozen on the bridge, racked with indecision, as we then go through and potentially resolve, at least for the foreseeable, kind of the Gorn conflict and their involvement in Strange New Worlds. Should say there, by the way, perfect timing. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Hazelson from the Xbox Guide, and Mike and I will be discussing full spoilers for Season 3, Episode 1, Hegemony Part 2. So if you have not watched the episode, what the hell are you doing here? Go and watch it. Will be full spoilers from here on out. So, Mike, let's just dive in, I think. Gut reactions to the premiere episode, obviously kicking off a new season of Strange New Worlds. It's been a minute since we've seen it. What was your take on that returning story?
Really good follow-up. Very, very evenly paced, very similar to the first part. I think I would have benefited from watching that again before, because it had been too long. Although I remembered the episode quite well, I think it's one of those that just follows on so fully from the part 1 episode. It's not like there's a break in the episode and there's kind of the second part is like a slightly different bit of the episode. It's completely just following on from where it left off. So it's kind of a bit jarring. It goes straight into like full action, which is a bit unusual. Normally you might have action for the first couple of minutes of the episode and then you get a bit of a lull, but this was it felt like a film in production value, and the way it was written and directed, it was so fast paced, but yeah, really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, well, for any audio listeners, we've got in the background right now of our video version of the podcast is the inside of the Gorn ship, which I thought they used the volume, that AR wall they've used for set extensions and stuff. I thought they used that really effectively there. That was a fantastic, it gave me, it reminded me a little bit of Mass Effect 2's Suicide Mission, actually. It kind of gave me like that vibe of like the collector ship, with all of the crewmen in the pods and having to be like totally ripped out. Yeah. Really, really cool and very physical design to that. The Gorn, I think, have one of the, relevant criticisms, I think, of Star Trek Discovery was the way they handled the Klingons in that first season, about not just their design and look was just completely left field in terms of canon and where they should be at that point in the history of Star Trek, but just what they did with the Klingons. I think they just They muddied a lot of the lore and they've made it a bit sort of inaccessible. Whereas the Gorn, I think, largely were kind of a blank slate. Like, they've been referenced a bunch of times, verbally by characters. We only really ever got them once in the original series, the classic episode Arena, and then Enterprise did a Mirror Universe episode where the Archer fights a Gorn on the Defiant, on the Constitution class Defiant. So they're kind of a blank slate. Lower Decks even did like a little hint. There was a brief visit to a Gorn wedding, I know, in one episode, which was great. But they've largely been unexplored in terms of their backstory or, their culture and their ship designs and all of that kind of thing. So Strange New Worlds has done a really nice job, I think, of building that out. And unlike what Discovery did with the Klingons, I think the changes they've made here to make them... They sort of were always a bit of a joke, I guess, partially owing to the production value of the 60s show, just a guy in a big rubber suit. But the production value here, and specifically the design of the Gorn, there was a really great shot early, sort of about halfway through the episode, where that Gorn was stalking the crew, but from really far away. The shot was like, it was like a held shot, and you saw him sort of galloping up towards it. It was the one that skewered Ortegas and knock Sam Kirk aside. That was a really effective piece of tension and design, and it in some ways, actually, I think they kind of evoke the Aliens, James Cameron's Aliens design in some respects.
That shot in particular was very evoking that, wasn't it?
Yeah, him sort of upright holding Ortegas, with the claw. Yeah. I genuinely thought Ortegas was going to bite it in this episode as well.
I was going to say, I felt it's almost a positive and a negative. I felt some jeopardy in this episode. but then you have the thing where because no one died, um, it's a bit like, is that it now? Like whenever anyone's in
Right.
peril in the future, are they? Because I don't know. She looked a bit worse for wear.
Mortal. Yeah. It kind of, it was a good opportunity, like you said, to kind of inject some stakes there in a way that Strange New Worlds isn't Picard, it isn't Discovery, it's not serialized storytelling. But what I'm seeing more though is I am noticing more through line to the characters. So they're maintaining their canon and consistency through these episodes, and I think even Ortega's just sort of, muttering to herself like, I fly the ship. I thought that was going to be her final line. I really, really, that when I was watching with my stepdaughter, both of us kind of like we
Yeah,
sat
I
up a
did as
little bit.
well.
We thought that was going to be it for her. Which in some ways, again, I see the double-edged sword of this, because on the one hand, I think it would have added stakes, and not following through on that death was a bit of an undercut that was, it lowered the impact, I think, of that moment. But equally, I think it would have been a real waste to not then have her character be more explored, because she has largely been sort of very much a supporting, probably the only character I'd say in the cast that hasn't had any consistent, meaningful development. So the fact that we cared enough about that potential death does show that at least we know enough about her to care in that sense. But I think there's now an opportunity here that I hope follows through the rest of the season as we see more of her and we get a little bit more insight into her character.
We obviously had on the other side some jeopardy for trying to help Captain Patel as well.
Yes, yeah.
So there was that. Like, was she going to die with it? And that seemed as well like a lost cause.
Mm-hmm.
Midway through the episode,
And not
with
necessarily
the
resolved here, is it? Like it was hinted that she'd made it through the surgery, but it was a stopgap measure, wasn't it? Like the Gorn eggs are still implanted, so
yeah.
it's. I hope that doesn't get left behind. I hope that's the kind of character through line that we get moving forward.
I liked Spock helping with the medical side quite a lot, and running and rerunning the simulations with various permutations. That was quite cool, and it was also a nice lull in everything else that was going on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Interesting as well that Pike would let Spock do that, or kind of insist that Spock does that when they've got this crazy situation going on the bridge, that Spock would probably, well, obviously his expertise came in very handy in sickbay, but you probably want Spock on the bridge for.
Yeah, it was. I think it showed Pike up well. I think because it was such a quick decision. He was like, no, go and help Nurse Chapel, go to sickbay, and I thought that was a really great bit of, like, especially after his an understandable indecisiveness, that moment where he just feels overwhelmed, not sure what to do. We then see Pike completely back in his element, in terms of making the quick decisions, being the calm presence on the bridge. Shout out to Anson Mount as Captain Pike. I think just a grounded and really engaging portrayal of a character that we know is doomed. The producers over at San Diego Comic-Con announced that the end of Strange New Worlds, which was announced recently, season 5 will be its last, a truncated 6-episode run there. It will end at the beginning of the original series. So we know that before we finish, we are going to catch up with what we've seen Discovery show us in the future and what the original series shows us with Pike, after his accident and him no longer in command. So it does give weight. I think they've done a really nice job, I think, right from that season 1 finale of Strange New Worlds, where he makes the decision not to change history, and because he saw the impact of his decision making and to accept his fate. It means everything he does, every moment where he's in jeopardy, or any decision he makes as a captain, it does give it weight. I think his character has been really fully realised in a way that the great Star Trek captains often are. So definitely shout out to Anson Mount in this episode. I think he was great.
Yeah, and I think this was the first episode where we really had Scotty actually contributing,
yes,
meaningfully, and that was quite cool. The engineering partnership was quite fun to see in action, and there were some really nice lines from both of them. And for Scotty in particular, just like
that when Pelia was sort of messing with him to try and like add stress, and it made him work better. Like that was really effective, and I like that we're seeing a younger Scotty here that's not as confident in his wild estimates and being a miracle worker. And I think we're kind of the pieces are falling into place now. There's been some really nice interactions, and we've got multiple of the original series characters now in place. Spock, Uhura, Kirk obviously in there, Scotty, We can expect at some point between now and the end to see a McCoy and Sulu, but we won't get Chekhov because Chekhov only joined the original series in the second season. So, but for the most part, the crew is sort of really, really coming together. I absolutely loved the whole escape from the Gorn ship and that whole sequence. I think that was really effective. Nice to see them coming up with a sort of, using the light projection to put them almost like encourage a hibernation. And it does actually address a big canon issue, which is that the Gorn, at the time of the original series, hadn't been seen for a long time. They've made first contact already, but they hadn't been seen forever. So this is kind of giving us now the context as to why, which is a nice bit of like, not something that was necessary, but it does fill in a gap in canon, which is really cool.
Yeah, I liked, especially liked Ortega's flying the ship when she was like you said, mortally wounded, like basically leaning over the console to fly it was quite cool. I felt, can't remember exactly. It's when they had to put the tracker on the Gorn ship, so they rammed it. That sort of collision with the Gorn ship was a bit underwhelming, a bit weird, compared to some of the great collisions that we've had in Star Trek, where normally the ship that's colliding with the other one is completely ripped apart, whereas this, it was just like
shield bubble.
Fine.
I think
that was the only bit that was just a little bit. I felt because the rest of the production was so good, it would have been nice to see some major damage to the ship from that.
Well, let's talk about that too. Is that we've I imagine we've definitely spoken privately about it, but I'm not sure if we've ever mentioned it on a podcast. The weird flaming pillars from Discovery and how the internal damage always used to look so fake, like sort of the same bit sparking every 5 seconds. And Star Trek does. Why Discovery is so egregious there is because Star Trek has a great history of damaging their own sets and showing the impact of space battle. And Strange New Worlds here pulling no punches. The full blown console explosions on the bridge, the crew getting thrown around. It really gave it that visceral, intense feel that you want from these kind of episodes.
Yeah, that is true. But then at the same time, I can't remember what the shields got down to, like 10% or something. And they were still fine in sickbay. It would have been nice to maybe link the two, so sickbay was losing power, or there was stuff. They were struggling in sickbay to keep the the machine on or whatever it was. That we've seen that before in Star Trek, whereas it was a bit like they're almost in their own bubble. They're completely unaffected by what the Gorn were doing.
Right, which you kind of you want the ship to feel cohesive, don't you? That everything happening is affecting everyone. Which is where when they cut back down to Scotty and engineering, that was really well felt. I think, which was great. Just it's nice to see the crew dynamics all kind of falling into place. Everyone kind of got a moment, which was really good. The pacing was great. I think as an opening statement, this was a really, really strong season opener, and hopefully sets up the episodes to come. We've got 9 more to go in season 3. I always wish that we could go back to because I'm rewatching TNG right now. Yeah, I know. I mean, that would be just crazy with this kind of production value. Imagine the cost, but and season 5 is only going to be 6 episodes. So we're going to really feel it when that last year. But what we should now have, pending any further writer strikes, is we should now have a bit more of a consistent cadence. So once this wraps up after this season 3 is done, we've got season 4 in 2026, and then presumably season 5 in 27. In between there, we'll also have season 1 of Starfleet Academy, which will be dropping at the beginning of next. They've said early 2026. So typically, when they've said that before for Star Trek Picard, that normally ended up being sort of February, March kind of time. So early 26 we'll get that, folding then pretty swiftly into Strange New World season 4. So,
and we've seen a trailer for that. Do we want to talk about that?
We can a little tease.
No podcast that we can talk about that.
No, exactly.
Other than this,
so we got the little teaser, didn't we, of Puppet Pike from the Jim Henson Puppet Company, which is the guys that do Avenue Q and Sesame Street and the Muppets, obviously most crucially, which is fantastic. I mean, just another big swing, and I hope it's an episode. I don't want an arc of puppets. I think it's I'm happy for that to be a one-off kind of hardy bit of fun. Yes, yeah. Just release the cast, have them all doing voiceover. Yeah. But yeah, so it shows that Strange New Worlds is willing to mess with it, continue messing with its format, and embrace its original series origins. We've got a Jonathan Frakes directed episodes coming up. It's episode 4, which is kind of like a holodeck murder mystery episode going on, which would be a really cool kind of Knives Out, but also TNG kind of nod as well, which would be really good fun. So they're continuing to mess with their structure and what you expect from those episodes. Interestingly, most of what they've shown in any previous trailers was kind of contained to the first half of the season. They have not shown anything from the back half, and they haven't really announced what's coming there either. So potential for some more original series tie-ins or crossovers there, but I think if this first episode's any indication, we've got an exciting season to come. So folks, you can follow us at Burlybird Media. You can find us on all of the things, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, also on YouTube, Podbean and Spotify. Please also jump into our Discord community as well. We've got lots going on there now. It's really, really busy, so please do come and check it out. Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me at thexboxguide.com and at the Xbox Guide on Threads and Blue Sky.
Fantastic, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.